to get him there. So the fact that they aren't willing to, crawl through the barbed wire to get that appeal, does that in your mind maybe think, it's a lot of optimism on our side, but Charlie Davis he wasn't there for whatever reason. He just wasn't ready to go.
Right. I think it's pretty clear that there was still doubt on the part of the national team. The sense I've gotten for some time now is that the national team wasn't so sure how far along he was and how realistic it was that he'd come back. I've gotten the sense for some time that they've wanted to temper expectations, and obviously everyone that followed Charlie's progress, listening to his comments and listening to him talk about his progress, everything seemed like it was going great. So you ask yourself, who do you believe? Do you believe Charlie, who's obviously going to be overly optimistic, or do you believe his club, who you would expect to want to temper things? So
right.
I think. The way I see it is the show had cleared him. I think he'd be in Princeton, one way or the other.
Yeah.
And that's what I've heard from people in the mix. That they would have taken that chance. That it would have cost the national team nothing to bring him in. Yes, that's one player. Some player would have lost his chance and would not have been on the 30, but it would have been worth it to see how far along he is, because he is training. He was training. It's not as if he hasn't, trained and hasn't been training with their first team. So he is doing, he is taking part in soccer activities. So it wouldn't have been like a complete total long shot where the guy can't play soccer at all. But once
right.
the show balked, and so decisively, I think at the end of the day, Bob Bradley just had to say, look, is this the battle we want to wage for a player who is still such a doubt? So I think at the end of the day, they just made that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the phone with Ives Galarsep, soccerbyives.net, which, by the way, I always ram my fingers into my keyboard after I type soccerbyives.com and then go, damn it, it's soccerbyives.net. So, just remember that. But Ives, just switching gears here for a second, with other, players with the national team, Clint Dempsey in the Europa final, obviously Fulham, their dream came to an end, that run they had. Where do you think Clint Dempsey's going to line up when England comes calling on June 12th? Do you think they're going to put him in at forward, or do you think he'll be in the midfield?
I think it might depend as much on what other players do in camp. If you have, with the forwards that are in camp now, you have, quite a few guys who are really on good form. And if that form can translate, if one of them steps up and shows that they can play and they can start and be an impact player on that level, and show enough Bob shows enough, Bradley shows enough confidence, I think you'll see Dempsey on the right wing. And I think you'll see a Buttle or a Gomez or an Eddie Johnson start alongside Josie Altidore. However, if none of them shows enough in the friendlies or in training camp, and if someone, say, like a Stuart Holden or even an Alejandro Bedoya or DeMarcus Beasley shows that they're on good form and shows that they're ready to make an impact, then I think you'll see Clint Dempsey up top. And for the longest time, I've been saying it pretty much since the Charlie Davies accident that Clint Dempsey's the guy you got to put up top just because of what he can give you as a goal scorer. But that was before players like Hercules Gomez, Edson Buttle, and Eddie Johnson have stepped up in these last few months and really shown that they can score goals. So if any one of them steps up, I think you'll see Dempsey on the right.
Yeah. No, I think you make good points there. Let's switch over now to New York. Obviously, you're a New Jersey guy. You've been out to Red Bull Arena. Give us an assessment. What's it? I mean, from someone who went to Giant Stadium multiple times and probably hated it, what's the comparison to Red Bull Arena?
Well, it really is night and day. I mean, you can't compare it at all. I mean, for me, about the only positive for me for Giant Stadium was that it was so close. I mean, I can actually see it from my house.
Oh.
But Red Bull Arena, just the best way I can explain it to you is, looking at Wednesday's Open Cup match against New England, there were, I'd say, just under 2,000 fans there, which sounds, really small. But 2,000 fans in Red Bull Arena still gave it an atmosphere. You could still hear the cheers and the songs and just the reverberation of life in the stadium with 2,000 people. At Giant Stadium, you can have 20,000 people and it might sound like a, mausoleum. It might sound like a cemetery, like you couldn't hear anything. So I think that's what people need to realize, that even if it's not full, even at 14,000 or 15,000, it's still such a great atmosphere. Now, obviously, they didn't build the thing to have 14,000. That's still something they're working on, is selling tickets. And obviously, if they bring in a player like Thierry Henry, who's long been rumored to come here, I don't think they're going to have a lot of problems selling those tickets. But the environment, the stadium itself, I mean, it's head and shoulders above every stadium in the league. It's not even close, and obviously they spent the money. I mean, $200 million. You're going to get a stadium that's miles better than Home Depot or any of the other stadiums that are in the league.
Yeah, I just saw it from the outside today for the first time, and it was had to wipe the drool off my mouth as I was coming in on the subway, or on the train rather. The last thing I want to ask you about, there's been some talk. Obviously, Montreal is the 19th team that's going to be in Major League Soccer. Don Garber's made some comments saying he thinks a 20th team, maybe he feels like it should be in New York, a second team in New York. I know that there are 12 million people on the island, but do you think New York can realistically support a second team?
I think it's kind of early to I personally think it would be a little early to put the second team in. That said, I do think there are a ton of New York fans who just through the years never really attached themselves to the Metro Stars or the team that's now the Red Bulls. What people don't realize is that for much of the time that the Metro Stars were in existence, they really focused solely on New Jersey fans and catering to that market and cultivating that season ticket base. And I think that was a strategy really through the years, maybe because there was always that belief that a New York team would eventually come over. So what you have now is quite a few New York soccer fans who never bought into the Metro Stars or the Red Bulls and are waiting for a team to call their own. And I think, people will look at the crowds and look at the half-filled Red Bull Arena and think, well, if that's not working, why in the world would they put a team in New York? But I think people need to realize there are a ton of fans there who never were catered to, who never were really sought. They weren't recruited. And I think if you put a team in New York, you'll see a lot of those fans come out of the woodwork and inherit a team. And I think the rivalry would be great. But I don't know. I think it's a little early. I think maybe you want to wait a while. Maybe make them the 22nd team and not necessarily the 20th team.
And if that does happen, Red Bull fan, if the new team comes and they just kill the attendance and they're putting 20,000 in the seats, Red Bull fans are going to have like hot bath water and razor blades all ready to go because they just can't take it anymore if they become the second team in New York there. Ives Galarcep, again, foxsoccer.com, a columnist for them, as well as soccerbyives.net. You all know him. Ives, thanks again for coming on, and let's both just hope the Wilpons aren't involved if it does become a team for New York, because I can't put up with a second Mets team that's just spends a lot of money and sucks.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that one.
Thanks, Ives. Appreciate it. Ives Galarcep, again, check out, too, on his website. He posted an interview with Charlie Davies on a French radio station. It was a very interesting listen. You need to check that out, too. Soccerbyives.net. We're going to come back, take a quick break here, and we're going to get you another luminary from the soccer writing world. Stephen Joff from the Washington Post is on the line, and we'll talk to him next right here on National Soccer Radio.
Sure, you could listen to the 18,000 other soccer podcasts out there, but they suck.
Let's listen to something. Let's get to it.
This is National Soccer Radio.